So real quick, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Debbie Glassband, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called GoldieBlox that creates engineering toys for girls. So I'll go a little backstory on me and how I got to where I am today. I studied engineering at Stanford, and which was pretty awesome, right down the road, and I loved it. But the thing that bugged me was that there were so few women in the program. And I always wondered to myself, where are all the female engineers? Where are all the girls? And I've been researching into this, and I learned that only 14% of engineers in the US are women. And this is a pretty crazy number when you think about sort of gender equity in every other field, and then you look at engineering, and there's still this huge gap. And so I had to ask why. Why is this going on? I'm not some sort of genius, you know? I mean, I'm not this crazy person. How did I end up becoming an engineer? And as I started to do some research into it, I learned something interesting, that boys, there's this test called spatial skills, which is rotating a 3D object in space. And all the academics seem to argue, well, you know, boys are really good at the spatial skills test, and that makes them good at engineering, so that's why there's more boys. And I started to look into this a little bit more, and I also found that kids who played with construction toys growing up tend to score better on spatial skills tests than kids who did not. And when you look at all of the construction toys out there on the market that have been around for 100 years, it's the total boys club. Connect, Erector Set, Lego, Lincoln Log. Forever, it has been all about boys, boys, boys. And girls have gotten the Barbies, and boys have gotten the Legos. And now, some of these construction toy companies have started to make their boys' toys for girls by turning them pink. Wow, right? So I thought maybe I can do a little bit better than that. And so I've started to go out and meet with little girls and get to understand them, because I think that there's probably a little bit more to us than just the fact that we like pink. And I started to uncover something really interesting. And while girls don't have as strong spatial skills for whatever reason, girls have incredibly strong verbal skills. Girls tend to learn how to read faster. They love character building and stories. And I came up with this sort of aha that instead of just only focusing on spatial skills, what if we combined these two things together to get girls interested in engineering? And so what I've come up with is a product that blends these two things in a company called GoldieBlox. And the mission of the company is to inspire the next generation of female engineers. And so I'm here today not to talk to you all about GoldieBlox, but to talk to you guys, because I've sort of become this leader. And I'm starting this company now. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm kind of on my own, and I have all these people working with me now. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting to get ready for this talk with all of you, to kind of share what I've learned along the way and how I've gotten to this leadership position where I am now. And I've asked people, well, what makes me a leader? You know, how did I get here? And there's sort of 4 things that I'm going to talk to you about today. And the first one is be fearless. The second one is be open. The third is be provocative. And the fourth is to be authentic. So I'll start with the first one, be fearless. And here's a quote I like to share from Eleanor Roosevelt. You must do the thing you think you cannot do. So in order to be fearless, you have to conquer your fears. You have to put yourself out there and do things that really scare you. And that was exactly what I did right about when I was your age. This is me when I was sophomore or junior in high school. And I was getting ready to start applying for college. And I asked my math teacher to write my recommendation letter to Stanford. And she said, well, Debbie, what do you think you're going to major in? And have you ever considered engineering? And I looked at her and I thought, engineering? Are you serious? Obviously you don't know me at all. So I went off to Stanford, and it was my freshman year, and I took every class imaginable, and I kind of liked everything, and I didn't know what to do. And it was toward the end of my year there, and I thought, you know what? That voice had stuck in my head this whole time. That math teacher had said, have you thought about engineering? And I thought, it's going to be so hard, and I'm probably going to hate it, and it's probably going to be my first F I've ever gotten in my entire life. But you know what? I'm just going to go, and I'm going to take ME 101. And I did, and I signed up for the class, like shaking. And I walk in there, and yeah, it was a room probably of 100 kids, and there was maybe 5 girls and all boys. And I thought, there's no way. I've probably made a huge mistake. But sure enough, I did the class. And engineering was nothing like I had thought it would be. It was, and I'm telling you this because I want you all to know, I did not know this when I was your age. We went into that class and we had assignments like, can you make a catapult that flings a baseball across the field using a piece of foam core, a rubber band, a soda bottle, and a string? And, get into these groups and you can build these crazy machines. And it was so creative and so cool. And so much fun. And so I took that class, and I declared engineering as my major. I was so excited. And throughout that major, it just kept surprising me over and over again. We learned things like how to brainstorm by drawing, and we would do these crazy mind maps and thinking outside the box and coming up with the craziest innovations. We would go out into the world and watch people in action and learn about real people's lives and how do you design for them. So if you're gonna, design a new truck, go and sit in trucks with truck drivers and drive all around and watch them drive the truck. And this was this kind of cool thing. And I thought, this isn't this intimidating engineering, crazy thing that wasn't for me. This was totally me. I loved this. We got to do rapid prototyping. So we'd come up with an idea and we would take pipe cleaners and pieces of paper and cardboard and whatever we could find, and we quickly mock it up, and we would start having sort of real products to test out in the world. And then we got to go and learn how to use the machine shop, and how cool is that? We got to pour molten metal into molds and use a mill and a lathe and all these giant scary machines that once you learn how to use them aren't so scary. It's actually kind of awesome. And so, everything was going great, and I'm loving engineering. And I got to this sort of turning point in my degree where I was taking this 1-unit class on engineering drawing. And I thought, well, this is going to be easy because I love art. I've always been an artist. I'm going to ace this class. And I go into it, and this wasn't the kind of drawing that I was used to. This was like drawing it perspective and all these technical drawing skills. And I would work hours and hours on the assignments, and I just couldn't get it. There was some kind of brain block. It was really hard for me to draw things in this perspective way. And in retrospect now, I realize it's because of the spatial skills, because I didn't play with Legos. I played with Barbies, and my parents wanted me to be an actress. So, of course, I didn't have all of these skills. But I was in the class, and we had our final presentation day, and we had to put up our drawings on the wall. And I remember standing there, and the teachers, who were these 2 guys, again in this big class of mostly boys, stood up there, and they said to the room, "Raise your hand if you think Debbie should pass this class." And silence. It was so awkward, and my face turned beet red. And they're like, "Come on, raise your hand if you think Debbie should pass the class." And I was just so humiliated. And I had spent hours on my drawing. Everyone else had scribbled theirs up and thrown it on the wall in 2 minutes. And, people were kind of standing there awkwardly like this. And, this one friend of mine just, stood up and he said, "How dare you humiliate her? How dare you? This is so unprofessional. She's obviously working really hard, and she's going to keep working at this. She's not going to give up." And he stood up for me. And I kind of left the room, and I was crying in the bathroom, of course. And I was thinking, what have I done? This is too hard for me, and I can't do it. I just don't get it, and maybe I'll just give up. And he came up to me and he said, "You know what? Don't give up." He's like, "You can get this. You're gonna get it, and I'll help you, and just stick with it." And so I did. And I had stuff like this that I had to do, all of these classes, and it was really hard and intimidating, but I stuck with it, and I just practiced, and I wouldn't give up. And I started to kind of figure out along the way that these problems that seem so hard and impossible can always be broken down into easier steps. And that's kind of what you learn in engineering, that everything can be solved and broken down. And the other thing I learned as I started to study more is I'd be at the library at 3 in the morning, and I'd see these nerdy guys from my class who always seemed like they knew everything. And they'd be in the library too at 3 in the morning studying. And there's this saying about how, all the students at Stanford kind of appear like ducks in a pond where everybody's calm on the surface. But underneath, they are paddling like crazy. And I finally learned, you know what? Nobody is born with this. Nobody is this born genius. And you have to work really hard to get this stuff. And I worked hard, and I got a degree in engineering. And I graduated. And the greatest thing is that it wasn't easy. And when I was in high school, I used to brag about how I'd get an A on my assignment and I didn't have to study at all. This was hard for me. I got C's. Like I didn't, I didn't had to kiss goodbye to my 4.0 grade point average. But you know what? I really learned so much. And on that graduation day, I've never felt so accomplished in my entire life. Felt like I could do anything. And that's when you start to become fearless. It's because you did the impossible. You did it. And it becomes addictive. And most recently, I just ran my first marathon. Same kind of thing. I'm like addicted. And it's 26.2 miles in this course, and you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, right. I'm not an athlete, but it's this hard problem that you break it down, and it's an 18-week training schedule, and every day you have your schedule, and then you do it and you practice, and then and then you can do it. Anyone can do it. And I'm crossing the finish line, and again, you have this feeling like you're invincible and you can do anything. And so now I'm starting this toy company, and everyone has said to me, Debbie, why don't you just take your little toy idea and you go get a meeting with Hasbro or Mattel and you sell them your idea? That would be so much easier, because otherwise you're going to have to raise millions of dollars. You're going to have to go up and compete against these giant toy companies. Like it's impossible. Just take the easy way out. And I say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do the hard way, because I've done so many really hard, impossible things in my life. And I've become fearless. So the next point that I wanted to make about being a great leader is being open. And here's a quote from Joseph Campbell. If you don't know who that is, then please find him. The big question is whether you're going to be able to say a hearty yes to your adventure. So after I graduated from Stanford, I did not become an engineer. I went and worked for a big branding agency, kind of like Mad Men. Has anyone seen that show, Mad Men? I was like Peggy on Mad Men. And I had all these big fancy clients in this beautiful office, working for Starbucks and Pedigree and the New York Knicks, and wearing my suit and going into all the big corporate meetings. And it was an incredible experience, but I had, what I came to was, I like to call it my quarter life crisis, where I had this great job and I was making all this money and traveling all around, and I just thought, what is this all for? What is the point? I'm selling Pedigree dog food, or I'm helping the most hated basketball team in America be like slightly less hated, And I just thought, you know what? I need to do something else, because this isn't it, and I need to be open to anything. And so what I decided to do is I said, okay, I'm going to be open to completely flipping my life around 180 degrees. I'm going to move to India. And I moved to rural India for 6 months and lived, you could not have picked a place that was more different than I had ever experienced in my entire life than rural India. And I was like the only white person for miles. And I would walk into villages and the children would start crying because they'd never seen a white person before. I was like the ghost. And I went out there because I said, I want some kind of meaning to my life and I want to try to help people. And so here I am. And, and I nobody here knows what Stanford is. Nobody cares who I am. And I just need to like get to know these people and just do what they do and just be open. And so I remember my first village I went to visit, and the people there welcomed me, and they said, "Now, Debbie, welcome to our village." This is all in some language I can't understand. It's being translated. And now, please accept our offering of our sacred drink. And I'm holding this drink in my hand, thinking, flashback to my appointment in the travel clinic where they're warning me about all of the like lists long of diseases that I could possibly get, and dysentery, all don't drink the water, all these things. And I'm like, what's it made out of? They're like, oh, sap from the tree. It's very good. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm sitting here staring at it and deciding whether or not to drink it. Raise your hand if you would drink it. Wow. All right. So, yeah. So I drank it. I drank the whole thing. And it turns out that it was highly alcoholic. And so so immediately everyone wanted to start dancing, and they wanted to know how we dance in the United States. And well, I couldn't really show them how we really danced, because that probably would have been inappropriate. So I taught them the bunny hop, and we did that. And then they tried to pierce my nose, like by taking the nose ring out of theirs and putting it into mine. That was a little, And, I just kept saying, yes, 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 I'm going to be open, I'm going to do it all. And they then invited me. There was this big domestic violence rally, and they asked me to come up on the stage and say a few words, and in front of like 1,000 tribal Indian women and girls who don't speak any English. And so I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say? So I started singing "I Will Survive." They loved it. If we have time at the end. And then, and as I went and kept saying yes and yes, people, would take me in, and as I opened myself to them, they opened up to me. And real quick, I just want to share one story of this woman that I met there, because we're here talking about leadership today. And I had visited probably 50 or so indigenous villages, and they were all, male-dominated cultures with the male elder, and I'd go there, and the women would, they're not even allowed to talk, and it's weird, and I'd try to get them to talk to me, and, And there was this one village that I went to, and the leader was a woman. And I was like, whoa, how did you, this is so crazy. And, how did you come into power? And I walk in, and she's in the front, and everyone's like bowing to her, and, she welcomes me in. And she said, well, our village was ravaged by like a terrible alcohol problem. They were all drinking that green drink a little too much. And she decided to do something about it and to fix the problem. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, yeah, what could we do here? Thinking I put my Stanford cap on, I'm like, oh, maybe we could do some kind of Alcoholics Anonymous program here that we could institute. And, I'm thinking like, oh, maybe we could put up banners and whatever. And she interrupts me, and she's like, yeah, so what we did was we went out at midnight when everyone was sleeping, and we broke the pot that they used to make the alcohol. I'm like, oh. She's like, yeah, it worked. And no one could drink the alcohol anymore. And as soon as she did that, people sobered up and started to, do things for their own betterment. And she was kind of at the helm of that and became the leader of this village and sort of saved the village from sort of self-destruction, which was just this amazing thing. It's like you go out there and you become really open to these new experiences, and I guess you learn how much you don't know. You don't know everything, and you've got to just, if you're going to be a leader, just be really open to learning what everyone else has to show you. So my next point is to be provocative. And here's a quote from Maya Angelou. I believe the most important single thing beyond discipline and creativity is daring to dare. So at the end of my trip in India, I met a woman named Annie Heslop, who has started a goat program in one of the villages, where she raised some money from her friends at home and took that money and bought a goat for every family in the village. And I got to go to that village with her 1 year later, and it was amazing because all the goats had made baby goats, and all of the village, the village had totally transformed, and I got to see it with my own eyes. And I was so inspired. I thought, okay, I'm going to go home and get all my friends to buy a goat and I'll pick another village. And so as I started to do this, I started to think about these kinds of fundraisers in the nonprofit world and the image they always show you of the people that you're donating money for, these like sad kids with dirt all over them and flies in their eyes. And, and that wasn't the kids that I knew. These were those kids that I had spent 6 months living with. And so I thought, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Yeah, I'm going to go home and I'm going to buy goats for these people, but I'm not going to portray them in this like sad, depressing way. I'm going to show the world these people. It's going to be a little provocative, but I'm going to show them for, the people that I know. And so my husband came out to visit me at the end of my trip, and I said, hey, bring a video camera. I want to shoot a video of these kids and these amazing people that we're going to put on YouTube, and we're going to get them some goats. So this is the video. So has anyone seen that video before on YouTube? A couple of you have seen it. So I made this video, and before I put it out, I showed it to some of my friends who work in nonprofit, just to see their reaction, and they were like, Debbie, you're absolutely out of your mind. You cannot put out that video. It's so offensive, and people are gonna hate it, and I can't believe, like, how could you possibly? And I kindly thanked them for their opinion, and I put the video up anyway. And it got over 200,000 views, actually over 300,000, because I had the swearing version and the non-swearing version, which is what I showed you guys. And the funny thing is that I was really worried that people were gonna, come up to me and say how terrible and offensive, and nobody did. Everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. And I think they were really inspired by it because it was really provocative and different, and thinking about kind of being a leader and getting people excited about what you're doing and wanting to join in. Like, you gotta kind of go out there and do something really different and unique and putting your own spin on it. This was our website where you could bling out your goat. So you could add accessories and give it your own name. And we ended up getting 462 goats donated on the website. We raised... Yeah, and we raised like over $20,000, and it was mostly in $20 denominations, and it was mostly from donors under the age of 25, which, if anyone here works in nonprofit, knows that is the hardest age group to reach. And somehow we just had them coming in droves. And I say we because I didn't do this alone. I came up with this crazy idea, and everyone just got inspired. And I had a web developer making this whole like customized goat app for free. And I had another friend of mine set up an entire Bollywood-themed scavenger hunt throughout San Francisco, where we were running around Haight-Ashbury, Bollywood dancing and raising money. And it was like the whole village came in to help make this thing happen. And I guess, I think it was because it was so provocative that it got people's interest. And the best part of the story is that we got to give the goats to all those people that are in the video. They all got goats. And we got so many goats that we got to give them each like multiple goats. And the villages, like, they've just totally transformed. And the goats are reproducing, which is kind of the point of it. And so far I've heard literally only one goat has died because of a snake bite. So that's pretty good. The rest of them are doing really well. And so my last point is about being authentic. And a Gandhi quote you've probably heard before, but we need to be the change we wish to see in the world. So I'm just going to close up with my last point that I had started this big goat thing And everyone was coming up to me and saying, Debbie, you need to turn this into a 501c3 nonprofit. And what's next? And what are we going to do next? We've got all these goats, and let's do another video, and let's make a goat Farmville. And I'm suddenly like, I have this path before me of being this like goat lady. And, and I had never thought the thing was going to get more than like $1,000. I didn't know, and I wasn't asking for all of this. And I had to kind of take a look in the mirror for a second. It was the hardest thing to do, but I thought, this is amazing, and what I've did is really cool, but it's not me. I don't want to go and spend half of my life flying back and forth to India. I spent my 6 months there. I'll maybe go visit once a year, but like in order to do this path, I'd need to practically move there, and it wasn't me. And so I thought back to probably one of the most inspiring people ever in my life was my painting teacher in college, Kevin Bean. And I asked him one day, Kevin, how did you decide to become a painter? Because who makes a living painting, And he said, well, it's funny because I studied computer programming, and I had this like very well-paying computer programming job. And I woke up one morning and thought to myself, I can't go to work today. I'm staying home to paint. And it's not like he's like, I didn't even decide. It wasn't even a choice anymore. I had to do it. I just had to. And that wasn't how I was feeling with the goats. I didn't, I kind of didn't want to do it anymore. But I always wished I could find that thing like Kevin had found where it was all that he could do, like where it suddenly doesn't become a choice. And so I kind of stopped the goat thing, and I started searching, and a group of friends of mine in San Francisco started this tradition called Idea Brunch, where we'd all get together once a month and make pancakes and get up and talk about our latest crazy ideas and businesses we want to start. And my friend Christy got up, and she said, she started talking about the lack of women in engineering, and how growing up she had 3 older brothers, and she played with their Legos, and it made her interested in engineering. She wasn't intimidated. She went and studied engineering at Stanford. That's how I know her. And thought, it's too bad there aren't these kinds of toys for girls. And the moment she said that, it just like hit me. It was like, woo, woo, woo. Like that is it. That's what I was born to do. And it became so obvious. It was like that thing my painting teacher had told me, where you just wake up and it's all you can do. And so I started working on this, and I started literally like turning my apartment into this crazy prototyping shop. And I was like sketching ideas and building stuff and prototyping and going and working with manufacturers and kind of going back to all the stuff I had learned in engineering in college that I'd loved. And I was going out and hanging out in toy stores and meeting little girls and going into their homes and getting to know these people. It was so interesting. And then I went and I snuck into the New York Toy Fair last year. And I went to like check it all out and what's this industry about. And it's like all like old men in suits. It's like the least fun thing you could ever imagine. And, yet again, here I am, like the only girl in this room with all these people looking at me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to break into the toy industry. And so I've started to do it because I literally can't do anything else. And I've become like so obsessed with it. It's like truly is authentic because it's not only, all the things that I enjoy and that I'm good at, but people can just tell like how much I believe in it. And this is like just some of the many people now who have been working with me. Like a lot of them, most of them for free for months. Like some of them like 60 hours a week working on GoldieBlox for me because they are so inspired by what this is going to do. I mean, they really believe that this is going to change the world, that little girls are finally going to feel like they can do it, And we're going to make it fun and we're going to make it interesting for them and we're going to, raise the number of girl engineers from 14% to 50%. And it's possible. And, and it's happening, I think, because it's so true to me and everyone can just tell and they want to be a part of it. And so I'll just close up with this thing that I wrote about GoldieBlox, and I'll just read it to you. GoldieBlox is a female engineer. She's not a nerd, and maybe she's not a genius. She's just a creative kid who likes to invent. She tinkers and builds and isn't scared to fail because she never gives up. She loves to construct things, delightful things, things that rotate and swivel and connect, things that solve problems, things that make the world a better place. GoldieBlox is a role model. She's not afraid to pick up a hammer and build whatever she dreams up next. This doesn't make her a tomboy. She is just herself. So when you close your eyes and imagine what an engineer is supposed to look like, there is no mold. Why, that engineer could be you. So go ahead and build with Goldie. You won't believe how fun engineering really is. Sure, it's not always easy. You have to use your brain. But when you try and finally figure it out, it's pure magic. You can be anything, go anywhere. Once you learn how stuff is made, you can make it your way. You can build your story.
Guys, what do we think of this awesome female engineer, Debbie, who also... Thank you so much. Scott, anywhere in the house? I'm just wondering if we have time for questions, potentially. So, like, what, a couple of questions? Okay, so I'm going to grab you this one. Okay, so anyone that has a question for Debbie, come on up and line up along this side and ask your question. Yeah, come on up, guys. Don't be shy. Yeah, there we go. Come on up. Yeah.
Hey Debbie, I'm Stephanie. Did you face any adversity in high school, like how you did in your engineering class at Stanford?
Did I face adversity in high school or at Stanford as well?
Did you face any adversity in high school that was like the stuff that you had to face at Stanford?
No. When
So-
I didn't. I was lucky, but when I was in high school, the top 10 performing students in my graduating class were all female. So, you know, and to the point where, like, and I think that maybe helped a little bit give me confidence going into Stanford. But as soon as I got to Stanford, it was like, it was pretty rough. I finally started to face some adversity. And actually, just very recently, I went to one of my first investor pitches, which was the Startup Accelerator program that's like very male dominated. And it's like a whole Silicon Valley tech kind of thing. And I walked in with my prototype with like a napkin over it because I didn't want anyone to see it. And all the guys said, "Oh, you brought us cookies?" And it still happens, you know, but like when things like that happen, you're just like, okay, I know that I'm doing this for a reason, and, you know, and you just stick with it, you know?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Aiden, and I'm interested in becoming a pilot, and I've been kind of pursuing that. And one of the things that I've also noticed is that it's a severely male-dominant industry. So I was wondering, I guess it's kind of like hers in a way, but when you encounter that kind of, I don't know, when you're put in that position to go to be in this large group with a bunch of males, how do you, I don't know, how do you act? Like, do you try and be like them, or like, I don't know, how do you?
I'm totally still figuring it out, because sometimes I start acting like a bitch. I totally do, because I'm trying to like prove myself when I feel like people are looking at me like I'm not smart enough. And I don't think that that's the right thing to do, and I hate when I do that. You know, I'm still figuring it out. I just think that you just have to be yourself, you know, and don't try to be or act any way. Just, you know, be true to yourself.
Also, I was wondering, when you went to India, how did you set up to travel to all those different villages? Was it just independent, or?
I went through you guys should all write this down. It's called VSO, Volunteer Service Overseas. And they're an organization like the Peace Corps, but they are the Peace Corps of the UK. And the coolest thing about them is that they you know, the Peace Corps, you have to go away for 2 years, and so it's kind of scary, and I couldn't do that. But VSO lets you go for less than 2 years, and it's kind of the same. So I went through that, and everything was kind of set up. I was working with a grassroots nonprofit there, and they paid for everything, you know. You don't have to be like rich to do all this stuff. There's so many programs out there that you can do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I had 2 questions. My first one was, what do they actually look like, the GoldieBlox?
Oh, that's a good question. I cannot share what they are yet, but I can tell you that I'm planning to launch them for this Christmas. So, yeah. So I'm currently working on filing copyright and patents and stuff. So it's like really, it's like the most top secret right now because I have all these lawyers now who have like, they're like, don't show anyone. So I can't show it, but you can go to the website GoldieBlox.com, GoldieBlox, and I'm actually blogging about my experience on there, so you can follow along. And you can sign up for the mailing list, and as soon as it's ready to show, I will send it to you, and you can see.
And my other question was, have you had any like stores like endorse you or choose you? Or you probably can't tell me, but
Oh, any stores?
like like Target or Walmart or.
Oh, no, not yet. So my plan first is to launch the product direct to consumer on my website with a video, and then after that, I plan on approaching the stores once I've gotten some buzz with consumers and gotten some PR and stuff. So.
But for those of you that didn't see, he just said that's so awesome.
Hi, my name is Jalen from Archbishop Midi, Group E. I had a question because I want to be a future CEO someday too. I kind of hit me like maybe a few minutes ago, but my question was, since you're a CEO founder of GoldieBlox, what kind of people skills do you have to have with your workers that is good to have? Like any skills at all?
I think the best skill to have as a CEO, there's a couple things, but probably the best one is to know that you're not good at everything, because none of us are, and eventually over time you learn what you're good at and what you're not, so that, because no one can do this stuff alone. So if you're a CEO, that means that you have people working for you. And you need to find people that are way better at the stuff that you're not good at, so you can get all of these things done and really believe in them and like believe that, you know, tell them how great that they are and fully believe it. And then the other quality I think that you need to have, that I have, which is why so many people have been wanting to work with me, is because I'm working so hard, and they see that, and then they in turn work really hard for you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I was wondering what subjects or skills or classes you excel at that make you like well suited to be a engineer.
So the engineering program at Stanford was awesome because, and I'm not sure what it's like in other schools. So to be an engineer, you have to be, you know, math and physics are really important. But I've always done poorly in physics, and I still was fine in engineering. I just had to work really hard. I felt like the classes that they don't tell you about that I think are really good for engineering are anything where you have people skills, where like, let's see, I'm not sure if they have these classes in high school, but like anthropology or things where you go out and get to understand people in the world. I almost think doing community service is really helpful, because really observing people and helping them, helping identify their needs, I think is hugely important for engineering.
Oh, wait, do you think like stuff like psychology and stuff?
Psychology, yeah, that would be it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yep, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Oh, and art. I didn't realize how closely related they are. Engineering and art are very related.
Hi, I have a question. So after Stanford, you had a really prestigious job and all, and then afterwards you just like packed up and went to India. How are your family and your friends like react to that, and did they support you? And if not, like how did you cope and deal with that?
So, my parents like forbade me to go. Literally, they were like sending me articles every day about some like horrible catastrophe that happened in India that was maybe like 1,000 miles away from where I was going to be. And I just had to, whatever. I said, I'm an adult and I'm going, so sorry. And it ended up being great, and they loved it, and they were reading my blog every day and like sending me care packages, so they had to get over it. And then the other thing, I guess I had a very serious boyfriend who's now my husband. And yeah, and I was lucky. He was like very supportive and understanding of me going. I think he was also feeling it too. He had a big corporate job, and he was like in the same boat as me. So he was like, yeah, go do it. He's like, but don't go for more than 6 months. So we compromised because I kind of wanted to go for a year. So that's how it happened. But sometimes like people have like really, my parents weren't excited about it. Like sometimes when you're an adult, you get to make your own decisions. You get to do whatever you want.
I wanted to ask about like in terms of being an engineer, is it really just making products for like big corporations, or what other things can you do as an engineer? Because I know it's a pretty wide range of things exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay, there's so many things that you can do as an engineer. So this is like a really hard question to answer. But okay, I'll just name a few things. Because this comes to mind. A friend of mine who we met at Starting Block, Eden, is an engineer. And she got this thing called the Teal Fellowship. She invented this like sunflower-shaped solar panel that rotates, and it basically like works better than all regular solar panels. She's like 20 years old, and she's gotten this fellowship now. She's actually like taking 2 years out of college to implement this rotating sunflower solar panel in developing countries like all over the world, which is so cool. And that's so not, and of course a good friend of mine, Ashley, is an engineer at Microsoft. And she oversees all of their user testing focus groups, so she helps make the software better and works with engineers by observing how people use it to make it easier. She loves it, because she gets to go out and meet people and observe that. I have another friend, Ian, who's an engineer. He's the CEO and founder of a company that makes, helps like some prosthetic limb kind of medical devices. And he's like helping people's lives, and he's done that. There's so many different places that you can go. So that's just like a sampling.
So, guys, sorry, we gotta, unless it's an absolutely burning question, can you make it really short? Sorry?
The question was if I went through a lot of majors before I decided engineering. I didn't go through a lot of majors, but I took a ton of, I took classes in like every single department that you possibly could. I took rock, sex, and rebellion, like a class about rock and roll. I took like psychology, I took humanities, I took math, like I took so many different things. And then toward the end I took the engineering and I majored in that.
Last question.
I grew up in Rhode Island.
It's okay, you guys, even though she grew up on the wrong coast, what do we think of Debbie? Let's give her one more giant round of applause.
Hi, I'm Naima from Group F.